Hey everyone, for today's deep dive, we're going kind of deep actually. We're taking on Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah, it's one of those things a lot of people hear about it, but don't really know the deal beyond like the 12 steps, right?
Exactly. And we got some questions from you all wanting to know more, so get ready to go beyond the surface level. We'll uncover how NA got started, how it actually works, and what the research says about it.
It's fascinating stuff, really. Much more to it than people realize.
So first things first, let's define our terms here. What exactly is Narcotics Anonymous?
So basically, it's a nonprofit fellowship, but specifically for people dealing with drug addiction. And like, it's important to say, any drug, any level of addiction, it doesn't matter. What brings everyone together is they want to stop using and support each other in doing that.
Right, and there's a huge emphasis on anonymity, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Huge. It's like built into the DNA of NA.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just using first names or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about making it a truly judgment-free space so people can share openly without, their past defining them. That's how real trust gets built.
That makes you wonder how this whole thing even came about. Did someone just, like, invent Narcotics Anonymous one day?
Well, it's kind of funny, the timeline there. So NA officially started in the 1950s in Los Angeles.
Okay.
But it was inspired by Alcoholics Anonymous, which was already doing its thing.
Ah, I see. So it was like a spin-off almost.
In a way, yeah. AA was great, but it became clear they needed something specifically for, like, drug addiction, right?
Yeah.
Filling that gap.
Makes sense. So who is the driving force behind NA?
So the founder, he's known as Jimmy K, or James Patrick Kinnan, if you want his full name. And here's the thing. He was all about anonymity, not just for members, but for himself, too.
Really? That's wild. You'd think as the founder, he'd want the credit.
Yeah, you'd think. Some people say it's because he knew addiction firsthand, so he got how important it was to make everyone equal. Like, in NA, no one person is more important than the group's recovery, not even the founder.
That's actually a really powerful message. And speaking of powerful, talk about impact. NA is everywhere these days.
For real. Fast forward to today, they've got something like 70,000 meetings happening every single week
Wow.
across 144 countries. It's wild. Goes to show you how universal the need for this kind of support is.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about anonymity, support, the origin story, but I think it's time we address the elephant in the room. The 12 steps. I mean, it's what NA is most known for, but let's be real, it can seem kind of vague, maybe even intimidating.
Oh, totally. Especially if you've never actually looked at them. 12 steps. It sounds very like you got to do this, then this, then this,
Yeah.
right? Like a checklist.
Yeah.
But that's not really the vibe.
So how should we be thinking about these steps?
It's better to see them as like guiding principles, a roadmap, but not one that's set in stone. You revisit them throughout your journey. They mean different things at different times.
Okay, that makes way more sense. So not about conquering all 12 at once, more like taking what you need in the moment. What are some of the, I don't know, the big themes that run through all of them?
Yeah. So a lot of it is about like self-awareness, right? Surrender in a way, and then service to others.
Okay.
Like step one, that's the one everyone's heard of, right? Admitting you're powerless over the addiction.
Which that's got to be a tough one to actually do, admitting you need help.
Totally.
Eh.
But it's also really freeing. And then that ties into another big one, which is finding strength from a higher power.
See, now that one I feel like throws people off. Sounds very religious.
It can be for
Yeah.
some people, but the beauty of it is higher power can mean like a million things. A belief in God, sure, but also the support of the group itself, or even just like your own inner strength. It's about recognizing there's something bigger than just you to lean on.
Okay, so it's more about that feeling of support, hope, whatever helps you keep going when things get rough. I like that. What else stands out as like a core idea in these steps?
Well, making amends is huge.
Yeah.
Like for the harm your addiction caused, taking responsibility for your actions, trying to fix relationships you messed up.
So accountability, forgiveness, all that.
Exactly. It's a whole journey,
Yeah.
looking inward, then making things right moving forward. But here's the thing. A lot of folks don't realize there's more to NA than just the 12 steps.
Wait, really? What else is there?
They've also got the 12 traditions.
Okay. And those are?
So the steps are kind of like your individual roadmap, right? The traditions are more about making sure NA itself stays true to what it's about, like how to build a healthy community and all that.
So it's like guidelines for the whole group, not just each person.
You got it. They work together, supporting personal recovery, but also the whole organization so it stays strong.
That's so interesting. What are some of these traditions then? Give us the highlights.
One of the biggest is always put the group's well-being first. The idea being your individual recovery, it actually depends on everyone else being strong too. That sense of community is key.
I love that. It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yes, exactly. And then this one's kind of different. They're super strict about no money stuff, basically. Like no asking for donations from outside, no paying sponsors or anything like that, no fancy buildings, none of it.
Wow, so they keep it really pure, huh? The focus is just on recovery, helping each other out, not about profit or anything.
Exactly. And of course, there's the anonymity thing again,
Mm.
like we talked about. That's huge EE for them.
Makes sense. That trust is so important. What's said in the room stays in the room.
Yep. Safe space, no judgment. That's the goal.
Okay, so we got the principles, the history. Now I gotta ask, what actually happens at an NA meeting? Paint us a picture.
Well, the cool thing is, while those principles are always there, each meeting has its own vibe.
Oh, really? So it's not like some rigid script everyone follows.
Not at all. In fact, they've got different types of meetings.
Oh, like what? I'm picturing like a grand ballroom with chandeliers.
Uh-huh. No, nothing like that. Remember, no fancy stuff.
Yeah.
More like think community centers, church basements, that kind of thing.
Keeps it accessible, right?
Exactly. But yeah, so they have these things called discussion meetings, which are pretty much what you'd think.
Okay.
People share their experiences, their struggles, what's working for them.
So a chance to connect, give each other advice, that sort of thing.
Yep. And realize you're not alone, which is huge. And then there are speaker meetings.
Okay. And what happens at those?
So in those, one or a few members will share their story, but like more in depth,
Yeah.
offering some wisdom they've picked up along the way.
Oh, so it's like learning from people who've been there, done that.
Exactly. But no matter what kind of meeting, the vibe is always hopeful, always encouraging. Oh, you know what I think is kind of cool? A lot of NA groups, they give out key tags.
Key tags, like for your house keys and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Seems small, but it's actually kind of meaningful. Newcomers get one at their first meeting, like a reminder of their commitment to getting better. And then as they hit milestones, like 30 days sober, whatever, they get different ones.
Oh, wow. That's a really nice touch, like a physical reminder of how far they've come. So let's say someone's listening, they're thinking about checking out NA, maybe for themselves or someone they know who can go to these meetings.
That's a great question, and it brings up a key difference they have. Open versus closed meetings.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the difference?
So closed meetings, only for people who are like actively struggling with drug addiction, wanting to recover.
So it's like an extra layer of safety for people early in the process.
Exactly. They can really open up without worrying about judgment from like outsiders. Now, open meetings, anyone can go to those.
Oh, interesting. So that's for, like, if you're just curious about NA.
Yeah. Maybe you have a loved one struggling, you want to understand better, or you're a therapist, whatever. It's a way to break down some of the stigma,
Yeah. That's great. Shows that addiction can happen to anyone and it's okay to ask for help.
For sure. But whether it's open or closed, that anonymity thing, that's still rule number one, always.
Gotcha. Creates that safe space so people feel comfortable sharing and supporting each other.
100%.
Okay, so we know the principles, the history, what goes on. But the big question is, does it even work? Does NA actually help people recover?
The million-dollar question, right?
Right.
We'll get into all that, what the research has to say, after a quick break. It really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, there's no easy answer, no simple yes or no.
Right, because how do you even measure something like that? It's not like, taking an aspirin and seeing if your headache goes away.
Exactly. Addiction is so individual, right?
Yeah.
What works for one person might not for another. There's no magic bullet.
Plus, with NA, there's that whole anonymity thing. How do you track people's progress long term if you don't even know who they are?
It's tricky, for sure.
Right.
Researchers can't just, like, send out a survey to everyone who's ever been to a meeting, right?
Right.
But, that being said, there has been research on 12-step programs in general and NA specifically, and the findings are actually pretty interesting.
Oh, do tell. What have they found?
Well, a lot of studies show there's definitely a correlation between going to NA regularly and staying off drugs. Like people who consistently attend meetings, they tend to have better outcomes.
So there's a connection there, but that doesn't necessarily mean NA is the cause of them staying clean, right? Could be other factors.
You're totally right about that. It's rarely just one thing, right?
Yeah.
NA could be one piece of the puzzle, but maybe they're also in therapy or on medication, or they've made big life changes.
So it's about finding that whole combination that works for you, which makes sense. Everyone's different.
100%. But get this, even beyond just staying abstinent, studies show other good stuff linked to NA.
Really? Like what?
Well, for example, some research suggests people who go to NA regularly, their self-esteem tends to improve. Same with how well they function socially.
Which, that makes sense if you think about it. Addiction can be so isolating. So just having that support system, people who get it, that can
Yeah.
make a huge difference in rebuilding your life.
It's huge, that sense of belonging. Because a lot of times that's exactly what addiction takes away, you know? You feel alone, like no one understands. NA helps fight that.
It's like you're part of something bigger than yourself again.
Exactly.
Now, I do know there are some criticisms of the whole 12-step model, right? Not everyone's a fan.
Right. And it's important to acknowledge those. Like some people say it's too rigid, too much like dogma,
Yeah.
follow these steps blindly or else. And then others aren't into the spiritual side of it. If you don't believe in a higher power, it's not going to resonate.
Again, goes back to what you were saying. One size doesn't fit all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you. Some people, they thrive on that structure of NA, the community. Others need something totally different. And that's valid too.
It's about having choices, right?
Yeah.
And the information to make those choices for yourself. But it sounds like even with the criticisms, overall, the research is fairly positive about NA's potential.
I'd say so. And it's worth mentioning, NA is constantly evolving. They're listening to the critiques, looking at the research, trying to adapt and meet people where they're at.
So it's not like some static, stuck in the past thing. It's growing and changing. I like that. You know, it's amazing how this deep dive has shown us just how complex addiction and recovery really are. It's not just about, like, stop doing drugs. It's about so much more.
100%. It's about healing, about growth and finding a way to live a good life, a healthy life, your best life.
Well said. So for someone listening who's maybe thinking about NA, either for themselves or someone they love, what advice would you give them? What's the best way to approach it?
That's a big one. I'd say go in with an open mind. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And remember, there is absolutely zero shame in seeking help. Addiction is a disease. It's not a moral failing. And recovery, it's a journey. It's not going to be perfect. There will be bumps in the road.
It's about taking that first step, right? Reaching out and figuring out what works for you.
Exactly. You don't have to go through this alone. There are people out there who get it, who want to help.
It really is true. Even if you haven't gone through addiction yourself, just having people around you who get it, who've been there, that's got to be huge.
Oh, it's everything. And that's really where NA shines, creating that sense of community, that safety net for people at all different points in their recovery.
Totally. It's been amazing, this deep dive, getting to explore all these different facets of NA.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. The history, the principles, those different types of meetings, even the research side of things.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And I think if there's one big takeaway, it's that NA seems to strike that balance between, like, having structure but also being flexible.
Yeah.
Like, you've got the 12 steps, the 12 traditions. Those are guidelines, right? But within that, there's room for you to find your own way, what works for you personally.
Exactly. It's not about forcing anyone into a box. It's about giving you the tools and the support to figure out your own path.
And knowing that it is a path, it's not like you just show up one day and boom, you're recovered. It's a process, right?
100%.
Right.
Ongoing journey. That's the thing to remember. Ups and downs, all of it. And NA, it gives you a place to go through all that without being judged. People get it.
So important. As we wrap this up, is there anything, any last thought you want to leave our listeners with about NA?
At the end of the day, I just want people to know there's hope. Addiction is tough, but recovery is possible. Maybe NA is part of that. Maybe it's something else, whatever. There are resources out there to help you live a better life. Don't give up.
So well said. And to anyone listening who's struggling, you are not alone. Please reach out for help if you need it. Don't be afraid to ask.
It takes a lot of strength to admit you need support. There's no shame in that whatsoever.
Beautifully put. We'll be sure to link to some resources in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn more.
Yes, please check those out.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, everyone, stay curious.